Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Credit Suisse's first ever EMEA Facebook Live session, which focuses on diversity and social mobility and what we do to support it here. So a big thank you to all of you, first of all, for joining us. I know that we've got participants that have joined us from outside of the UK. So to all of our European counterparts, welcome and thank you. And also to those who have joined us from beyond. So today's session, as I said, will focus on diversity and social mobility. When we're out on campus, we do get lots of questions. We get asked all the time about, what does diversity mean at Credit Suisse? What do you do to support it as an initiative? So we wanted to use technology to embrace, sharing that with you. And we have some panellists today who are representatives from our business who each play pivotal roles in helping to address and, make sure that diversity and social mobility is at the forefront. So for today's session, we'll go through some questions. They'll cover off what they do in their roles. We'll also have some videos which we'll play, just giving you a bit more of a taster into some of the initiatives that we've supported. And then we'll also turn over to yourselves for Q&A. So we'd like to make the session as interactive as possible. So please do tap your questions in the comments box, and we'll try to answer those as we go along. Just so that you know, we will also have the opportunity to answer questions after. So if you're not tuning in live, then do tap questions into the comments box, and we'll answer them at a later date. So diversity at Credit Suisse, what does it mean? Well, it does extend beyond the norm, and we try to do that by recruiting students from a range of degree disciplines, backgrounds, universities. So one thing I would encourage you to do is to not, sort of exclude yourself from any opportunities that we have available. Applications are open, deadlines haven't closed yet. So if you are interested, please do apply as soon as possible because we are recruiting on a rolling basis. We have opportunities within investment banking, technology, global markets, across all of our European hubs that we support. So please do apply, and we hope that you enjoy the session. So I'll turn over to today's panel. We have David Evans, Rebecca Kane and Agatha-Christie Onwuzuruike. So panel, if you'd like to introduce yourselves.
Sure, my name's David Evans and I've been at Credit Suisse now for 12 years. I work in the investment banking capital markets division as a finance operating officer, and that role entails meeting with the group heads and the bankers and checking that we have all the pipeline for our revenues so we can do accurate forecasts for year end, for strategy presentations and things like that. The reason why I'm sitting on the panel today that I'm also the chair of one of the Women's Network subcommittees called the Path to Success subcommittee.
Great, thank you. Rebecca.
So I'm Rebecca Kane. I work in global operations, business engineering team in settlements and cash management. I actually joined Credit Suisse about 4.5 years ago, and I joined on a graduate scheme, and prior to that I actually participated in an internship. I'm here on the panel today because I'm co-chair of the Wellbeing and Care Network, which is focused on disability, carers and mental health.
Great, thank you. Agatha.
Hi, I'm Agatha and I'm currently a first-year analyst in the consumer and retail team in the investment banking division. So I did my summer internship last year in the same team, and prior to that I was on the Steps to Success programme, which we'll go into in a few moments.
Great, thank you. So if I could start perhaps with you, Rebecca. You mentioned that you're the co-chair of the Wellbeing and Care Committee. Can you talk to us about some of the initiatives that Credit Suisse works to support and any projects that you've been involved with which have helped impacted the way it supports Credit Suisse employees?
Yeah, absolutely. So like I mentioned before, the network is focused on kind of 3 key strands. That's carers, disability and mental health. And one of the things that we've really focused on this year is the mental health aspect. And I think that's something that's really helped provide support to employees in Credit Suisse because it has been focused on mental health in the workplace. We've actually, as part of the This Is Me in the City campaign, we've done a number of videos internally in Credit Suisse which involve volunteers coming forward and telling their own personal story around mental health. And that has helped kind of share people's personal experience and help provide support within the company. And actually, I think we're going to have one of those videos now for everyone to see.
My name's Tom Churton. I work as a project manager within the Strategic Risk Programme and will shortly be joining the Global Credit Products COO team.
My name is Sue Vox-Gard and I'm a director in the Human Resources Department in London. I have worked at Credit Suisse for over 10 years.
I'm Fliss Wright. I joined Credit Suisse in 2015 as a contractor and became a permanent member of staff in July of this year.
My name is Jill Lungley and I manage a team of IT people here at Credit Suisse.
I am a single mum and a parent to 3 teenage daughters. One of my daughters was diagnosed aged 10 with anorexia. At the lowest point, she nearly died from potential fatal heart problems directly as a result of anorexia. She is now 14 years old and I'm pleased to say in recovery. 2 years ago, her twin sister was diagnosed with depression, anxiety, OCD and had been self-harming. She has missed nearly 2 years of school and has spent some time as an inpatient in a psychiatric unit.
My first panic attack occurred when I was 23. It hit me like a heart attack. Before I knew it, I was in the back of an ambulance on my way to hospital.
A month before I joined Credit Suisse, I found myself in intensive care being treated for a sudden and life-threatening illness. Whilst I recovered physically, my mental health took a nosedive as I became all-consumed with fears for my health. Not long after, I experienced a series of very frightening panic attacks and became so terrified of having more that I started to avoid certain situations, everyday situations, in the mistaken belief that experiencing more panic attacks would actually make me lose my mind from fear.
My story is about, as a manager, managing an individual with a mental health disorder. Early on, she had not been diagnosed as having the disorder. And as a manager, I was seeing very strange behaviour. It transpired that after discussions with her and getting her support from within the company, but also through her doctor, she was diagnosed with bipolar disorder. The positive of this was that we got her the right support with the right medication, and over time she managed her condition such that she became a key contributor to the team and a key contributor to the organisation.
It wasn't until I took a step back did I realise just how much stress I had in my life, not just at work but also at home, and the cumulative effect it can have on your health. I had to be honest with myself and determine the primary drivers of these events and how to manage them. Maintaining a healthy lifestyle is key, both physically and mentally. This year I became a father. I've completed 2 Tough Mudder events and will shortly be relocating to New York.
As a new joiner, I didn't really fancy telling any of my colleagues what was going on. I didn't want to be judged, and actually waited until I was almost at rock bottom before I said anything to anyone. Eventually I did speak to my line manager and a few colleagues and actually wish I'd spoken to them sooner. The reason I'm sharing my story is because I want to be part of bringing about a culture where it's okay to talk about mental health, to talk about it openly and with compassion, and also to let people know that mental health illnesses can impact anybody at any time.
These have been very difficult times and I've witnessed a lot of awful things. But on the positive side, I have gained a new perspective on life. And I've realised I have a strength and personal resilience that I didn't even know that I have. During this time, I've had a variety of different managers at Credit Suisse who have all been very supportive to me as a working parent.
I've had excellent support from my family, the medical profession and my management team, and it's great to see the increased focus from Credit Suisse. I'm Tom and this is me.
My name's Fliss, this is my story.
I'm Jill, this is my story.
I'm Sue, this is me.
So hopefully you can see that we have a number of employees here at Credit Suisse who have all volunteered their time to tell their own personal story. I think that's been really effective in helping to reduce the stigmas around mental health and improve the kind of support available for individuals within the company.
Absolutely.
If anyone is interested in seeing any more of those videos, there are actually 2 more available on the Credit Suisse Facebook page and YouTube channel.
Great. Thank you, Rebecca. So David, if I may turn to you next. It's well known that trying to get women to join the banking industry and also retain them is quite a challenge. Can you talk to us about any insights or any involvement that you've had in your role as subcommittee chair and how we try to address these issues at Credit Suisse?
Yeah, absolutely. So the subcommittee that I'm the chair of is called the Path to Success. What we want to do is basically give the employees the tools to take charge of their own career development, giving them obviously ideas how to do that, access to inspirational people in the bank who serve as role models to tell their story. And we also want to give them guidance as well. One of our most celebrated streams is the mentoring programme, where senior people will meet with a more junior person, and they meet, say, once a month or whatever, and they'll get guidance throughout their career at Credit Suisse. And that can be talking anything about long-term career projections, or it could be something about the day-to-day issues they're facing in their role, something that perhaps their own line manager might not be able to help with. And it helps give people a bit of a different steer on their own situation. And it also is great, it gives people an opportunity to meet other people across the bank. It's a real good way of networking. But the whole guidance thing is really great, and we find that so many senior people want to give up their time to help maintain and develop our more junior staff. We also do lots of events based around how to get to the next level. We do lots of events based on promotion. We've actually got one coming up on Thursday, which is full already actually, called the Path to MD. And we've got 2 female MDs and a male MD who are talking about their journey of how they got promoted. And also the UK CEO is also sponsoring that event. So it's something that the bank sort of takes very seriously. And so yeah, that event said it's full, and so we're actually going to be broadcasting it to our European offices as well. And the other side that we want to do is we just want to encourage people to engage more in stuff outside of their role. It's very much put your hands up culture at Credit Suisse. If you want to help out, everyone's more than willing for people to join their subcommittees in the networks. So yeah, there's plenty of opportunities. And the network, we really do believe that, you know, employees taking charge of their own career, and we can do that by giving inspiration from the role models that we have at the bank.
Okay, great. And do you see that the interest in the Women's Initiative has increased during your time here?
Yes, absolutely. So I've been the chair for about the past 2 years, and we've had about 1,800 people sign up to our events. And actually what is more interesting, I think the men are trying to take the ladies' lead in terms of taking charge of their own career. So we've seen a lot more males come to the events, such as the promotion. And that's been great, actually. You know, everyone should take charge of their career. So we're really pleased to see the interest that what started as the Women's Network has now expanded into any employee who wants to take an interest in their own career.
Okay, great. So, Rebecca, you mentioned that you'd participated in the Women's Mentoring Programme. Can you tell us about what experiences you had on the programme and how it impacted you?
Absolutely. So, yeah, as I mentioned before, I joined as a grad. So when I joined as a graduate, I signed up to the EMEA Women's Networking Scheme, and I found it really beneficial in the time I've been here. I've actually had a couple of different mentors, and they've both just really helped guide me. They've been sounding boards to ask questions to. If there's maybe ever something you don't want to talk to your line manager or team about, it's somebody else that you can reach out to. And actually, like you mentioned, it's an opportunity to meet people from other areas of the bank as well that maybe you might not necessarily come across in your day-to-day role. And it is a role model. It's somebody that you can look up to, that you can, like I say, ask guidance from, ask questions, and just get a bit of all-round advice.
So a good way to expand your personal network as well.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay, great. Okay, Agatha, support for social mobility is something that Credit Suisse sees as imperative, especially when supporting the next generation of talent and future leaders. Having participated on the Steps to Success social mobility programme, can you tell us a bit about what that programme is and how you came to learn about it?
Of course. So I learned about it about 4 years ago when I was in my second year of sixth form, and a friend of mine had actually applied and was very successful on the programme. So he shared it with me because he thought it was a great opportunity, which of course it is. So I applied and found out a few months later after going through the process. And how the programme is actually structured is something that I think should be shared with as many people as possible, because it's a 3-year programme and it starts even before you start university. So in the summer before your first year, in the summer before your first year, you do a 4-week internship, and that's in either IBCM or it's in IBCM, and it's in one of the 2 divisions. So that's either markets or that's IBD. So I did my first internship in IBD and my second internship in markets. And I think that's a very useful structure because you get to see both sides of the bank. And then when you decide which side of the bank that you want to be in for your third internship, you're very well informed about it. So I did my 10-week internship, which I assume most of our audience will be applying for. I did my 10-week internship in IBD, and I was very well informed about it. And I think another good thing about the program is the mentorship that you get, which everyone has alluded to. But I think it's something that really should be driven home because you get to network, you get to have an understanding of the different parts of the banks that exist. And you can ask very straightforward questions that maybe an 18-year-old will be like reluctant to ask in a more relaxed setting. So the program was very beneficial.
Okay, so can you perhaps give us some of the highlights that you experienced during your time on the program, and more importantly, the difference that the program made to you and to your life?
Of course. So I think one of the highlights is, of course, knowing that my tuition fees were paid for and leaving university without debt. And the second, I think, more important highlight is having a strong network within Credit Suisse, even before you start. So every single summer before I did my internship, I knew that there were people that I could talk to, learn from, and feel no reluctance towards asking about career development, asking very frank questions about whether or not IBD is for me, whether or not I see this as a long-term role. So I think just having that support network was very, very helpful.
Good. Okay. I can see that we've got a few questions that are starting to come in, but what I'd really like to do is actually play you a video which Agatha features in alongside some of our other Steps to Success interns, and just gives you a little bit of insight into how they found their time during the internship experiences they had.
My name's Agatha. I am 18 years old and I live in Peckham. I'm currently studying politics, philosophy and economics at the University of Oxford.
Hi, so I'm Peter Adefioye. I'm from East London, was born and raised in the Hackney area, and I'm going off to study theology at the University of Cambridge.
My name's Dominic Cisnowski. I'm 20 years old at the moment and I go to Queen Mary University studying human geography, and I started the STEPS program in 2014, which means I'm about to do my 3rd rotation at Credit Suisse.
So my name is Arm Tarath. I'm a 2015 STEP scholar and I have completed my first summer internship, and I'm looking forward to my second 6-week summer internship. I study history, politics and economics at University College London.
The Steps to Success program is one that's quite unique in this country. I don't think there is anything like it, actually. So it's something that's been buzzing among people my age for a few years now. So it was quite, for me anyway, it was quite impossible not to hear about it from peers and other people.
One of the greatest benefits from being a STEP scholar that I feel that I've gained would definitely be that my network has broadened a lot. I know a lot of people within the industry now who can give you advice, and you always have like a mentor, and people encourage you to come back to Credit Suisse and speak to someone if you're having any trouble or if you need any advice.
Overall, the Steps to Success program was incredibly valuable because the sessions put on by HR, by the buddies, and by everyone else in between made sure that the scholars who are actually on the program were head and shoulders above everyone else who will be applying to be investment bankers both now and in the future.
It really just took the worry off my shoulders when it came to university, so I could really focus on my degree and my course and doing the best I can, and also gave me an environment to thrive within a bank.
The STEPS program is one that appealed to me because I've always been interested within the financial industry itself, and the scheme itself is one that I'd modestly describe as life-changing, and that's because the opportunity to take part in 3 internships over 3 years while receiving a full academic scholarship for my university fees is a great head start to my career.
The STEPS program has definitely improved my soft skills, my communication skills, and it's certainly increased my network within the investment banking industry.
on the Steps to Success program, you're assigned a mentor, you're assigned a buddy, you're assigned sessions before you even get into the firm. And there's a whole program ahead of you for the next 3 years. You're given opportunities to present in front of senior people as well as your team. So it's a really enriching program.
The mentoring system was incredibly valuable because it gave me a clear idea of what a career progression in the banking industry looks like.
I would certainly recommend the STEPS program to other students simply because it has improved my soft skills, especially my self-confidence skills, which I feel will be a major benefit to other students from underprivileged backgrounds.
Okay, so hopefully the video there just gave you an insight into how we support social mobility at Credit Suisse. You got to hear from Agatha there and some of her colleagues who were on the programme and really sort of hear about what the impact was and what it meant for them to be able to have that amazing opportunity. We've had a number of questions come in, actually one for you, Agatha. So Max is asking, what's the exposure like for interns during the internship?
Okay, so I'll take the question in two parts. So firstly, we'll think about what exposure is like towards people who are more senior, and in terms of exposure, in terms of the sorts of things that you'd be doing on a day-to-day basis. So in terms of exposure to more senior members of the bank, I think Credit Suisse does a very good job of making sure that you meet lots of people at all levels of the bank during your internship. So we had like MD drinks and like networking, and that was a good way to meet different like managing directors who aren't necessarily in your team, and ask them questions that maybe you won't be comfortable asking to someone who's in your team and is probably going to hire you or decide whether or not you're hired, and just getting an understanding of, you know, how each different part of the like bank, how each different group within a specific division differs is also something that I think Credit Suisse like focuses on. And in terms of working on a day-to-day basis during your internship, I think exposure was like very, very high, which of course makes it easier to make that very well-informed decision that I think is very important. So whilst you're working on deals, you get to sit in on all the meetings, you're privy to all of the calls that take place, so you know exactly which direction the deal's going in, which direction the project's going in, and you feel like your input is going towards one specific goal. And I think I was very, very lucky, or I assume not very lucky because I think this is how it is throughout the bank, but being able to say to the person who was allocating work, oh, I'd like to do more technical things because I haven't had much exposure to that previous to joining, and just knowing that once I've asked for this, it's going to like come my way and I would have the opportunity to grow. So I think exposure is something that's provided in a very direct way and is something that you can, build on if you want to. So that's very helpful.
So you have to take the initiative and you have to sort of, put those things in place to help you excel.
Yeah, exactly. Yourself. And if you want to, the opportunities are there.
Okay, great. Some great advice there, thank you. We have another question that's come in from Giuseppe. Perhaps if I can ask you this question, David. We've heard about the mentoring programme of the Women's Network. What other networks within Credit Suisse offer a similar kind of mentoring programme?
No, that's a very good question. The network I know is the LGBT and Ally network. They've been having a mentoring programme now for about 5 or 6 years, I think. And I've actually had a mentor from that programme, and we've been had a relationship for about five years now, and she's someone who I meet with regularly and gives me fantastic advice. There's also mentoring schemes outside of the networks. So each division, I know IBCM has a mentoring network, and also other areas like risk and change. I know it's a real big focus, and it's something it's quite easy to organise, and it has long-term impact. And I'm sure the other networks I'm not actually part of will probably do a similar thing. But yeah, it's joining a network, joining a mentoring scheme would be my top tip actually as soon as you join the firm is take part in the mentoring scheme.
Okay, great, thank you. A question also from Gustav. So how does Credit Suisse differ from other banks in their work towards a more equal treatment of its employees? Do you want to take that one, Rebecca?
Sure, so I think all banks run a lot of different schemes around these type of things. But I think the way Credit Suisse differs is both in the breadth of the opportunities it offers. So, I mean, just here we've got 3 representatives of 3 different situations, but there's a whole plethora of things out there, which any one of them could have come and spoken, really. There's, you mentioned the LGBT, they have the LGBT network, the Ally programme, they do a lot of reverse mentoring as well, also following on from the question before. There's a whole range of different topics that people can get involved in. There's sports networks, there's, you know, kind of mental health and all these different things. So I think it's both the breadth that Credit Suisse offer and also the culture that Credit Suisse has and is continuing to foster. So particularly around, we have very clear culture and ethics standards. I think that both helps apply some structure to how kind of the culture is at Credit Suisse, but also allows sort of the company and the employees to sort of support each other. And I do think that's one of the key differences you do get between other banks and Credit Suisse is that culture. Like, I spend so much of my day here, I want to feel like this is somewhere that I enjoy being and that I like the people and that they support me and that I support them. And I think you really do get that at Credit Suisse.
Great. Thank you. Another question come in for Agatha, you're very popular today, from Antonio. Agatha, what was the best advice you've received from senior people within the firm?
I think it would have to be assessing whether or not, you know, Credit Suisse is for me, whether or not banking is for me. And I think that honesty is something that I think is very rare, because it's very easy for someone who's been here for 20 plus years to just push one side of the bank. And I think having a very balanced approach to lots of the questions that juniors have is very helpful. So just assessing on a day-to-day basis, or, you know, perhaps a bit less frequently than that, whether or not like this career path is for you, is something that's very important, and making the best use of the opportunities, whether that's learning, whether that's networking, in order to be more certain that, you know, this is what I want to do. And I think that's very useful. So I think recently I had a coffee with one of like my mentors, and he just gave me lots and lots of advice about making use of the training programs that Credit Suisse constantly runs, making sure that, you know, trying to find that balance between doing all of the work that you have to do in a day and like building your human capital is, I think, like invaluable advice that I think everyone should take regardless of whether it's at Credit Suisse or elsewhere.
Absolutely. A question from Tristan. Perhaps David and Rebecca, you might both want to input on this one. How is the work-life balance at Credit Suisse, and what kind of support does the firm offer to provide to new recruits? So what support do we give?
So like I say, I joined on the grad scheme and internship, so I can particularly answer from that new recruit's perspective. When you join on a scheme like that, you immediately have the support of the other people on your scheme. And actually, that's been incredibly useful for me going forward in my career as well, because I have this ready-made network of fellow colleagues in various different areas around the bank that I can go and ask questions to, sort of run ideas past. I found that really beneficial. As we've previously touched on, the mentoring scheme is really useful for providing support to individuals as well. And your line manager and your team, there's this huge company around you who've got loads of experience and information that you can learn from. And I do think, like I mentioned earlier, it's a really supportive environment.
Yeah, I know from working in IBCM as well, no, is a big focus. You know, it is a long hours culture. However, you know, there's a massive effort. There's lots of social events. There's quiz nights with the analysts versus associates, where senior people will come, you know, help out. So, yeah, I mean, to say that it's going to be a low hour culture probably isn't so much in IBCM. But, you know, people are working together and there's a real conscious effort to make sure that the hours that we do put in it are enjoyable and we get something from them.
You also have things like flexible working for people that do need to have a different arrangement, or occasionally the opportunity to work from home if there's a particular reason. So, you know, depending on the role and the team, there are definitely opportunities to help facilitate that work-life balance as well.
Okay, great. I think I saw a question come in asking about eligibility for the summer internship programme. So just so that you know, summer internship applicants need to be graduating in 2019. So you would need to be available to complete a 10-week summer internship next year and then graduating the following year. So a recruiting question, I think that was for me. Let's see, there's also another question about asking how many students are selected from French business schools for summer internships. We don't have a specific quota, but what I would say is if you do have any additional languages, then they're always very helpful because a lot of our clients are European. So no specific quota, but second languages are always a good thing to have. Okay. A question from Andre. Agatha, perhaps you want to take this one. How would you describe the scale of the projects that you're working on and the meaningfulness of the activities in which you partake during a summer internship?
Oh, that's a very good question. So I think in terms of scale, it varies, of course, because despite the fact that you're an intern, you're treated like a first-year analyst, essentially. So anything that a first-year analyst could potentially do, you're essentially doing because, they don't create work out of nowhere. It's not useful, you don't learn much from that, and frankly, they just don't have time. So in terms of the scale of the projects, you could be on an M&A transaction that's worth several $100 million. You could also be on a pitch, which is trying to win new business. And it may not seem very meaningful, but that's sowing the seed for the future M&A transaction. And I think it goes back to what I said before, just being privy to all of the calls that take place between other members of the team, between the clients and the team members, I think is something that's very important and makes you feel like you're part of something significant, something substantial. So you're definitely not photocopying, you're definitely not grabbing anyone's coffees. You're really made to work, and I think that's important because that's how you get to know, what it's like to actually work here. And I think that's primarily what the internship is there for.
Thank you. A question from Francesco, which perhaps each of you could take. If you could choose a value which summarises Credit Suisse, what would it be? So, David.
I would say, I think it's very respectful, actually. The team, I've been in the team now, sort of on and off for about 10 years, and we have quite very low attrition. Everyone's really caring, interested in what each other person's doing, and I think that's a really great way to make sure that people sort of stay at the firm, and everyone gets on really well, and everyone has an interest out of each other outside of work, and everyone's very respectful in terms of demands, in terms of your workload and your work-life balance. So yeah, respectful.
I think it's a really tough question. I want to say inclusive. I do feel that there is the ability to be who you want to be in the workplace and to, feel accepted and to work together sort of brilliantly because of that. And actually, I think you're encouraged to maybe bring your eccentricities to work to a certain degree, and it kind of helps foster collaboration and innovation and all these great things. So. Yeah, I think I'll go with inclusive, but there's loads that it could be.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Agatha?
I would say meritocratic, because I think lots of the diversity initiatives that are in place are there to, address the fact that lots of people are going to be brilliant at this job, but for whatever reason, whether it's social structures or just circumstance, it's very unlikely that they might fill up these roles. So having, the Steps to Success program is, I think, testament to this, the weight that they put into meritocracy, and knowing that it's not just going to be people from very specific universities or very specific backgrounds is something that I think shows throughout the bank. So definitely meritocratic.
Okay. A question from Alexander. What are the most important personality traits to become successful at Credit Suisse? And perhaps from a recruiting perspective, I'll maybe go first on this one. I would say that we look for different types of profiles. We don't look for, one type of person when we're recruiting. And actually, students are quite surprised when we go out to campus, and some of them, they say, I come from a sciences background, but I'm interested in investment banking. Is there any sort of way for me to join? And I'm actually like, well, yes, because we tend to hire lots of engineers. They actually go on to do quite well. When you think about some of the, the logical, technical, the logical skills that they have, they are transferable. And then it's like, oh, actually, that's it's an afterthought. So try not to rule yourself out. There's no one particular personality trait that we're looking for. We need a mix of people to thrive in an organisation as big as ours. So we'd just say or recommend that you don't rule yourself out. Don't think that there's any sort of particular personality trait. Just really sort of be passionate about the industry. Be passionate about what it is you're looking for to get in terms of your experience here, and then put your best self forward and when you get to interviews, really think about drawing on what are the key skills, what are the things that are going to help you shine. We get lots of applications through from thousands of applicants each year, but what is it that makes you stand out as an individual? For us as a bank, we've got lots of information on our website about what the Credit Suisse culture is like, so do read up. It's always best to research ahead of coming to interview with us, but learn about what values you would like to see, that you'd like to work, the types of people that you'd like to work with, and then use that to help you make a decision. Anything anyone wants to add about personality traits? Or
I would say being driven. It kind of follows on from what you're saying, but being driven, being hardworking, being tenacious, and kind of wanting something and just keeping going. And I also think having a positive outlook can be beneficial as well. Not that you always have to be sort of all singing and dancing, but just having that positive view on things and ways to turn change into opportunity, all those kind of things.
But also as well, I think each department has their own culture.
Absolutely.
And I think during the interview process, you'll find a team culture that matches your fit, and you do tend to find the people in different roles have different experiences, and that's quite often it's great because it means there's a whole diversity of personalities coming into the firm.
Okay, all right. So a few more questions that have come in. How are rotations organised during internships? So it does vary by division. So for investment banking, you spend the first week training, and then the remaining 9 weeks are spent it's on one of the desks. So Agatha spent her time within the consumer and retail team, and we think that for investment banking, it's better to stay within one division because you get to really learn about the technicalities and really sort of get that solid experience. On global markets, you get the opportunity to rotate across different teams. So it does depend on the division. The website will have information about the specifics for each division. But what did you find in terms of, well, I guess from steps you were able to spend time within global markets and investment banking. Do you think that really sort of helped you to learn more about the firm? Or
yes, for sure. And it's just very basic things about, the bond that we issue in IBCM, so in investment banking, what happens to that bond once it's been put onto the market, and being part of that program, you get to see both sides of that. And of course, when you're 18, you may not see how it fits together.
Yeah.
But once you've gone through the program and you started working, you have that understanding, and then you know people throughout the bank, which I think brings some holism to everything. So that's good.
And I suppose you also get to learn about the different profiles within the different divisions. So investment banking, global markets, you get to work with and interact with, people from, sort of different, backgrounds, walks of life, etc. Their roles are very different. So what about some of the soft skills that you've learned or that you learned during your time there?
Okay. So I think lots of emphasis is put on perseverance, because I'm sure everyone knows it's oftentimes quite high pressured, with very high expectations. And I think that's not necessarily just from people in your team, that's also from yourself, because the types of people who apply for these roles are very, very driven. So just having that and being able to develop that, I think has been very helpful. And I also think attention to detail is one of the other skills that you pick up whilst doing this job. So I think those are the main two.
Okay, so I can see that we've had a fair few questions come in. We won't be able to answer them all tonight, but we will be able to come back to you after the session. So thank you very much for submitting. If I could close with a question to each of our panellists. Given the respective roles that you play, could you give the students one bit of advice as they look to start their career in the banking industry? So David.
Yeah, I would think the advice would be, listen to people in the industry, find out if it really is for you. I'm a work in banking now, but I actually started off my career, I was going to be a primary school teacher, and I was doing a work experience. This is my first year, and the teacher said, just think really long and hard if this is what you want to do, because it's something you could end up doing for the rest of your life. And actually I did leave as a result of that, because I just wasn't sure. And I'm so glad that I took that advice from someone who's experienced in the profession. I didn't think I would end up in banking, but I have been here for 12 years now and I absolutely love it. And I'm glad I was given the advice and the opportunity to pursue it.
Thank you. Rebecca?
I would say take the opportunity. So if you, in any career, but particularly sort of somewhere like Credit Suisse, you may come across lots of opportunities and it's great to go and take them, but there's also opportunities to kind of create your own path in many different ways. Particularly within the networks, I think that's a really good example of it. Sort of getting involved in some of these things outside of your day role. If there's not something that kind of immediately grabs your attention and you think there's a gap there that something needs to be done, then go ahead and set it up and see if other people want to get involved.
Show that entrepreneurial spirit.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. And Agatha?
I think it's very similar to what's been mentioned, but just creating your own Steps to Success program, because I think what was very useful is just navigating my way through the bank. And I think just reaching out to as many people as possible doing the jobs, the roles, or filling the roles that you in the future would like to fill, and asking very provoking questions about whether or not they enjoy it, what they actually do, what the work-life balance is like, things that are aligned with your values, just to see if this is something that you'd like to do, oftentimes 6 or 7 days a week. So it's very, very important to, I think, ask these questions. Yeah.
Okay, great. Well, a big thank you to our panellists. It's our first Facebook Live session. We've had lots of really good questions come through, so thank you to all of you as well for putting those to us. As I mentioned before, we will be able to come back to you separately and answer those questions. As I mentioned earlier as well, applications are open, so please do apply as soon as you're ready. We recruit on a rolling basis, so please don't wait until the deadline to submit your applications. We're interviewing now, so we are looking forward to receiving your applications. Thanks very much.